Picture this. A baby cries and everyone rushes to help. They coo, comfort, rock, feed, soothe. Now picture a teenager shouting, a care home resident refusing help, or a support worker snapping in frustration. What do we do then? We tell them to calm down, to behave, to be better. In today's episode, I'm asking, why do we extend compassion to babies but demand control from everyone else? Let's rewrite the rule book on behavior, just starting with the principle of a crying baby. If you are caring for someone else, whether paid or unpaid, and no matter how many hours you do it, did you realise that you may be missing out on thousands of pounds of discounts for things that you may use every day? The Able to Care podcast is proud to be sponsored by the UK's #1 carers card. Started by two best friends who recognise that carers deserve better and are 100% committed to helping to change the lives of all carers and bringing them together as a strong community. Carers Card UK provides support, recognition and rewards. It offers reassurance by providing an ID card that helps access emergency information when needed, while also unlocking discounts, a wellbeing hub, a carers circle tool and a community through their app. All of this for less than the price of a box of chocolates a year. There are discounts on gym membership, days out, electrical goods, clothing and even glasses. Let others know you care while taking a little care of yourself with an ID card you can be proud of. Visit carerscarduk.co.uk/promo code/able to care today to order yours. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Able to Care podcast. I'm your host, Andy Baker, and today's episode is one of my favorites. It's an analogy I often use when I'm looking at the behavioral models that I teach, and really it kind of is a summary for my book, Targeting the Positive with Behaviors that Challenge. Is what I would class as positive, common sense caregiving that we apply to a younger person, but we just apply to anybody. So let's jump into it. Let's start with that baby. A baby cries and our instinct is care. We think, are they hungry? Do they need a cuddle? Are they scared? Are they uncomfortable? Are they in pain? Do they need changing? Do they need food? Whatever it is. We don't expect them to self-regulate. We don't shout. We don't punish. We assume their behavior is a form of communication and we respond accordingly. But something strange happens as people get older. A 5-year-old throws a tantrum and we start talking about rewards and consequences. A 15-year-old storms out the room and we just say they're just attention-seeking, typical teenager. A 45-year-old with trauma gets overwhelmed and refuses to speak. They're labelled as manipulative or non-compliant. A 75-year-old with dementia lashes out during personal care. They're just being difficult. Sometimes the older people get, the less tolerance we have for emotional expression, especially when it's messy. And yet the need beneath the behaviour often stays the same. The baby is communicating, I'm in pain, I'm uncomfortable, I feel unsafe, I don't know what to do, I need help, I feel emotional. And that's exactly what any adult or older child is saying just using different language. So as we understand more about behavior and we recognize that people don't have choice over the behavior like we once thought they were, the concept of free will has nearly disappeared. And the more we understand and can see the brain, we understand at least, and this gap is ever closing, 95% of our behavior is non-conscious. So if we think about things like attachment theory, for instance, secure attachments in infancy teaches that the world is safe and others can be trusted. But if those needs weren't met, emotional expression in later life often becomes more extreme because it was never heard early on. Maybe I feel I need to act out at my worst to get the attention that I so dearly need. And you might say, well, they should know better. But remember, most of this might be non-conscious. They're not even aware of what the right or wrong of it is. When we look at things like polyvagal theory, when we feel threatened, we don't think, we react. Our emotional system sits into threat. Our alarm bell goes off. Our nervous system kicks into survival mode to fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. The same system that causes a baby to scream for milk causes a teenager to shout, an adult to shut down, or a care home resident to resist any form of touch or connection. When we look at Elements of developmental trauma research. People who have experienced trauma during development often show dysregulation into adulthood. They revert to younger emotional states, not because they're choosing to, but because their brain's regulation systems are overwhelmed. We can even look at those with neurodiversity, where sensory processing might mean that their ability to recognize their emotions is not typical. It's harder to control your emotions if you didn't realize they were coming. So, if we're thinking about it from this example, let's say we've got a situation with a boy who's lost his father at age 6. He's now 9 and can't settle in class. He chews his sleeve, cries easily, and clings to staff. And teachers describe him as babyish. What they're seeing is grief stuck in time. What if a teenager with trauma, a fostered teen, lashes out when given a group task? He's labeled disruptive, but no one asks if working in a group reminds him of chaotic family settings. His shouting is actually a cry for control, a need to feel safe, just like a baby crying. What if an adult, a woman with learning disabilities, screams when there's a loud noise and staff say she's being dramatic, but sensory overload is triggering fear? She doesn't yet have the words for, or doesn't have the words and vocabulary to be able to let people know or really understand herself. She just feels overwhelmed. What about a man with dementia who's becoming aggressive every time somebody tries to change his clothes? People think he's resisting help, but in his mind, he's 20, and a stranger touching him, he's scared, not stubborn. In every one of those cases, if we treated them like we would a crying baby, and in no way meaning to infantilize, or we're not going to start cooing at them, and we're definitely not going to be picking up an 80-year-old man and trying to rock him in our arms, but curiosity, gentleness, understanding, compassion, calm. We'd create connection instead of conflict. One of the problems that we often encounter is we start to shift our expectations of how we feel people should or shouldn't be able to behave or regulate or act or understand or knowing the right and wrong. And because we've got these fixed ideas in our head of what people should and shouldn't do, we have to recognize that they're just thoughts. They're not facts. So sometimes we need to be very mindful of all those scripts. So working on this premise, they should know better is, well, why should they? Because the only reason we know stuff is because we've been taught and we've practiced, we've experienced, our brains are able to, include that information and retain it. So if anything's meant that I've never been taught that, if I'm not able to retain information in the same way, if I'm not able to call on it when I need to due to emotional dysregulation, all things like developmental delay, trauma, dementia, or stress can all interrupt emotional growth. Knowing isn't the same as being able to. How many of us know we shouldn't lose our temper in a situation, and yet we've still done it? How many of us know we shouldn't have told that person that secret, but we've still done it? Because knowing in that moment isn't always the same as being able to inhibit it. How many of us know we shouldn't eat that chocolate bar because we're on a diet, but we still do it? We can all be guilty of being able to struggle to regulate our impulses in particular moments. So just that they should know better is going, well, in this moment, they weren't able to call on that. Another message we need to unlearn, they're just doing it for attention. Is a baby just crying for attention? Yes, because attention is a need. I need somebody to come and help me. If I could do it myself, then I wouldn't communicate it out. How often do we then sometimes see like a child who falls over, and if a mother's there, they're more likely to cry than if they're not? Because if there's nobody's about that can help them, what's the point in crying to communicate, please help me? Whereas if somebody's there that they trust, that they know they can help, of course they're going to use that language to be able to do it. Attention is a need. When we punish people for seeking it, we teach them to seek it in unsafe ways, or that they're not allowed attention, they're not good enough for attention, and destroy their self-esteem and their sense of worth. They're just being manipulative. Well, let's reframe manipulation as unmet need, desperation, and learned behavior. So what should we do instead? If we always kind of think about, what would I do if this was a 2-year-old? That same question unlocks the right response, even if it was a 42-year-old. What would I do if this was a young child? Well, I'd go in and I'd try and understand. I'd try and be curious. I'd try and figure it out. I'd go through maybe a few options I know it might be, change and burp and feed them. Obviously, we don't carry that on to an adult necessarily, but the principle's there. We know a few things that often work for them. So let's try those. And hey, that's not working. So but we still go in with compassion and understanding and aim to understand at least. Use regulation first, language later. There's no point in telling a baby how they need to learn how to behave and how they need to regulate and what they should do and how to change nappy because they don't have those skills. And in that moment, when somebody is in a heightened state of emotion, we need to put the fire out before we can figure out how to prevent the fire in the future. A calm body equals an open brain. If I'm in a heightened state of stress, I'm not able to listen and rationalize in the same way. So we always connection before resolution. Teach staff and individuals you're working with to decode behavior. Train your team to ask, what's the unmet need here? What's the stress? What's the strategy? What's wrong for them? What are they feeling right now? Or what might have happened in the past that could be presenting in the present? Create space as well for emotional expression. Let people be messy sometimes. Let people be emotional. Sometimes our instinct is just to stop that behavior. We only need to do it if they're unsafe. Sometimes we need to let them have it to recognize it. We don't shame them for it. And model empathy loudly. It's okay to feel that way. I'm here while you're figuring it out. We'll sort this together. I'm trying to do my best to understand you. Something about what I just did has upset you, and I'm sorry. I'm trying to figure it out. So I want you to think about a recent incident, a recent behavior that you found challenging. Now imagine if the same behavior had come from a much younger child or a much younger person. What would your response have been? And what does that tell you? Is it based on the level of risk? Is it based on your values of what you feel they should or should not be able to do? Behavior is communication. It's true at 6 months and 6 years. When we offer the same compassion to adults and elders that we do to our babies, we don't just support people, we honor their humanity. Thanks for listening. If this episode helped you to see someone differently, share it. Let's rewrite the rule book. And reminder, it's not about infantilizing anybody. It's not comparing anybody to a child. It's just recognizing that those models that we use in early life can be utilized throughout. It's only our expectations that shift us going, you should know this by now, rather than if you don't, well, let me teach you rather than punish you or judge you. See you next time.